The last time the world saw Malcolm-Jamal Warner, he was smiling with his daughter. A moment of pure joy captured on camera, but only hours later that smile was gone, forever.
Year-old daughter at a beach on Sunday when surfers spotted them struggling. The surfers dove in to help. One surfer used his board to bring Warner's daughter to
How does a man go from happiness to tragedy in a single night? They told us it was an accident, a simple swim that ended in sorrow. But if that's true, why were there so many unanswered questions? Why was an autopsy denied? Why were witnesses silenced? And why did millions move from his accounts in less than 24 hours? And then whispers of something even more haunting. Encrypted files Malcolm may have been protecting. Files that some say held secrets powerful enough to destroy reputations and maybe even cost him his life. This is not just the story of a man's death. This is the story of questions that refuse to die. Was Malcolm taken by accident or erased with purpose? And if he was silenced, then who will dare to speak next? Stay with me. The truth about Malcolm's final moments is darker than it seems. Like and subscribe now, because what we uncover next will silence every doubt. The smile. Before the silence, it began with a smile, the kind of smile that makes you pause and feel the warmth of life itself. Malcolm-Jamal Warner sat beside his little daughter, celebrating her birthday. A flower was tucked carefully into his hair, placed there by the child who adored him more than anything in the world. He looked into the camera and laughed, his voice carrying a joy that felt contagious. In that moment, nothing seemed wrong. The sun was shining, the waves were calm, and Malcolm's words rang clear. There's always a reason to smile. It was a scene that should have been remembered as a simple, beautiful family memory. But hours later, that smile was gone forever. The same man who had radiated happiness was pulled into a tragedy so sudden that people everywhere are still trying to understand it. How could someone so full of life vanish in a single afternoon? How could the joy of a birthday transform into the heartbreak of a funeral? This is where the questions begin. Witnesses on the beach spoke of danger in the water. Some say Malcolm was caught in a rip current, a force so strong even trained swimmers struggled to escape. But others claim he wasn't simply swimming. They say he was fighting, pushing against the water, reaching desperately to protect his daughter. Which story is true? Was he truly saving her? Or is the official version meant to keep us from knowing the whole truth? The silence around his final moments feels heavy. Imagine a father laughing with his child one minute, and then, only hours later, struggling against the sea. Doesn't it seem strange that two such different realities could happen in the same day? Why were there no lifeguards nearby? No quick rescue, no clear answers. The video of Malcolm with his daughter has now become haunting. Fans replay it over and over again, searching for clues, wondering if his smile carried hidden pain or fear. Could it be that he already knew something was coming? Or was it simply fate, cruel and merciless, waiting to strike when no one expected it? What makes it even harder to accept is the way the story was told afterward. A polished official statement claimed it was nothing more than a drowning. Simple, final, unquestionable. But life is not always that neat. The people who were there saw something else, and their voices refused to fade. The smile before the silence was not just a father's joy. It was a reminder that life can change in an instant, that love and loss are separated by only a breath. And until we uncover the truth of what really happened, that haunting final video will remain a mystery. But if that smile was the last, what really happened in the waters of Costa Rica? Conflicting stories. From Costa Rica, the day of Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death should have been ordinary, peaceful, even joyful. A father on vacation with his young daughter, celebrating her birthday, creating memories that would last forever. But instead of happiness, the world was left with confusion, suspicion, and a story that keeps changing every time it's told. The official report said Malcolm drowned after being caught in a rip current. It was described as a simple accident, a moment of bad luck in dangerous waters. According to that version, his daughter was never in the water at all. She was safe on the beach while Malcolm swam too far and couldn't make it back. A tragic, yet straightforward ending. But was it really that simple? Eyewitnesses say no. People who stood on the sand that day claimed they saw something very different. They say Malcolm's daughter was in the water, trapped by the strong current, and that Malcolm rushed in after her. They say he was fighting to keep her safe, fighting with everything he had left. They even claim local paramedics treated the girl on the beach once she was pulled out. So why would officials deny this? Why would they erase the story of a father's final act of love? Doesn't it change everything if Malcolm died a hero? Doesn't it matter if his last moments were spent protecting his little girl instead of just swimming alone? Why would a father's sacrifice be written out of the story? The contradictions don't end there. The chief of police himself said he was on the beach and saw what happened. He spoke with the Red Cross, who confirmed that both Malcolm and his daughter were caught in the waves. If that is true, then why did another agency insist on a completely different story? Who are they trying to protect? When you hear two versions of the same tragedy, your heart wants to believe the one that honors the man. But what if the truth is being hidden on purpose? What if the official narrative was crafted to make sure no one asked too many questions? Because when there are questions, there are investigations, and when there are investigations, there are discoveries. So here we are, caught between two truths. One clean, polished, and simple. The other messy, painful, and heroic. Which do you believe? Which would you want to be remembered by if it was your story? The silence from Costa Rica grows louder every day. The world deserves to know whether Malcolm died just another victim of the ocean, or whether he gave his life in one of the bravest ways possible, as a father protecting his child. And until that truth comes to light, every report feels incomplete, every headline feels false, and the waves on that beach will carry more than water. They will carry secrets. And while the waves carried away answers, Regina King's silence raised even more questions. A widow's moves and a trail of millions. Grief usually slows people down. When someone we love dies, our hearts feel heavy, our bodies move slower, and every decision becomes harder to make. But in the hours after Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death, something very different seemed to happen. Instead of grief, there was speed. Instead of tears, there were signatures. And instead of mourning, there were money moves. Reports began to surface that less than 24 hours after Malcolm's body was pulled from the water, his wife allegedly contacted lawyers, not to plan a funeral, not to arrange comfort for their little girl who had just lost her father, but to move money. Legal documents were prepared, and millions of dollars in property and investments were shifted into her name. In the blink of an eye, a $12 million estate no longer belonged to Malcolm or even his daughter's future. It was hers. Why such a rush? Why was the first reaction not sadness but business? Why did securing wealth seem more urgent than saying goodbye? The questions only grew darker. Witnesses claimed the widow also pushed for a quick cremation. No autopsy, no time for deeper investigation, just a body sent home in silence. If the death was truly accidental, why would anyone fear an autopsy? Isn't an autopsy the clearest way to shut down rumors? Isn't it the one way to prove there's nothing to hide? Even more disturbing were whispers that the daughter herself was denied one final goodbye to her father. Imagine that for a moment. A child who had just celebrated her birthday with her dad was allegedly kept from seeing him one last time. How could any mother deny that? Why take away a child's chance at closure? Fans around the world noticed these details, and they couldn't stay quiet. On social media, people began asking, who benefits from Malcolm's death? Who gains the most from his sudden silence? Was this simply the cold way some people handle loss, or was it something more calculating? The speed of it all is what unsettled everyone the most. A man had just drowned. A father was gone. And yet, in less than a day, legal lines were being redrawn and financial futures were being secured. Isn't that strange? Doesn't it feel more like a business transaction than the tragedy of a family? Money leaves footprints, and in this story, those footprints lead straight into the shadows. A widow with millions, a daughter with unanswered questions, and a public left wondering whether Malcolm's death was only the beginning of a much darker plan. Because when grief looks like greed, people can't help but ask, Was this just loss, or was it motive? But grief alone cannot explain the whispers of files that may hold the truth. Regina King's shadowed grief.
I am deeply saddened by Malcolm's passing, Regina said. He was not only someone I loved, but also a friend and colleague who held a special place.
When Regina King spoke after Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death, the world listened. She did not have to say anything at all. She had every right to stay silent, to let the years of distance between them protect her from the storm. Yet she chose to speak, and what she shared was small, graceful, and heartbreakingly powerful. Her tribute was not filled with anger or bitterness. It was not about the pain of the past or the sudden end of their relationship years ago. Instead, she posted a simple picture of Malcolm on his motorcycle with the words, "Some people leave a lasting imprint, not just for who they were, but for the energy they carried." A second post followed, "Ride in power." That was all. 2 short messages, but within them lived decades of history, love, and loss. Why did those few words hit so hard? Why did fans feel the weight of something much deeper than grief? Because Regina's story is not just about losing a former love. It is about losing everything and still choosing grace. Years before Malcolm's death, Regina faced the worst tragedy of her life, the loss of her only son, her child, her world, gone too soon. She once described grief as love with no place to go. Those words now echo again in the shadow of Malcolm's passing. Was her tribute simply for a man she once loved? Or was it also a quiet acknowledgement that something about his death felt wrong? People remembered how Malcolm had left Regina suddenly, painfully on Valentine's Day. Flowers and a card saying, "I still love you," but no explanation, no closure. That heartbreak lived in silence for years. But when she honored him after his death, she didn't sound like someone holding on to anger. She sounded like someone who knew the truth was bigger than both of them. Could it be that Regina saw through the polished reports and unanswered questions? Could it be that her soft, sorrowful words were her way of standing with him one last time? Fans could feel it in her tone. Behind her quiet grace burned something stronger: suspicion, memory, maybe even unfinished business. The kind of fire you don't show openly, but that flickers through your eyes and your silence. And that silence now holds power. Because if Regina, a woman who has endured unthinkable pain, chooses to speak at all, it means something. Perhaps she's not ready to say what she truly believes. Perhaps she never will. But the world felt her words like a whisper from the grave. Was Regina only mourning? Or was she quietly reminding us that Malcolm's story is far from over? If such files existed, who wanted them buried? And how far would they go to silence him? The Files and the truth. They buried every story has a shadow. And in Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death, that shadow is a single word whispered across the internet: Files. No one can fully explain what it means, but the word alone has sparked fear, curiosity, and endless questions. Some fans believe Theophils were secret files Malcolm had been gathering. Not just ordinary documents, but information that could have shaken powerful industries to their core. What was inside them? Names, dates, proof of things we were never meant to see. And if Malcolm truly held such files, is it possible he was silenced before he could share them? Pieces of this puzzle began to appear even before his death. In interviews and podcasts, Malcolm hinted at truths hidden in the dark. He once said, "Some stories never make it to the light." In another moment, he admitted that certain things can keep you up at night. Were these just random words or subtle warnings? Then came the most chilling detail. A leaked email, allegedly written by Malcolm to a close friend, revealed something impossible to ignore. In it, the spoke of encrypted folders he called Files. He admitted he was scared, unsure of who to trust. And at the end, he wrote a single line that still makes people's hearts stop. "If anything happens to me, know it wasn't an accident." Why would a man write that unless he knew he was in danger? Why would he speak of fear if there was nothing to hide? The idea of Files spread quickly online. Reddit threads, Twitter debates, YouTube breakdowns, all asking the same thing: where are the files now? Did someone destroy them, or are they hidden, waiting to surface? Could his daughter one day uncover the truth her father left behind? The silence from officials only makes the whispers louder. If there is nothing to hide, why deny an autopsy? Why silence witnesses? Why treat a hero's story like an inconvenience? Doesn't it feel like every loose end is being tied with strings of secrecy? What makes this even more haunting is the possibility that the files still exist somewhere. A hard drive, a cloud account, a hidden password. And if they do, then the story is not finished, because truth does not stay buried forever. So, what were the files really? A myth or a weapon of truth? Did they cost Malcolm his life? Or are they the key to proving everything we've been told is a lie? The answers may still be out there, waiting for someone brave enough to dig. Until then, the ocean holds its secrets, and so do the shadows. And we are left with one final, terrifying question. If Malcolm was silenced, who will they silence next?